maayong hapon, panyeros and panyeras. It's indeed a beautiful and cozy Sunday to learn and enjoy. And today we're about to witness the championship round of one of the most awaited activities in our college. But before we formally start our activity for today, allow me to introduce myself. I am Rowie Omlero from Iligan 4th year Tihanki. And I would love to see beautiful faces here in Zoom. Wow. So if you can, will you open your cameras for me? I'm waiting. Sige na. Ayan. Beautiful. Yes. Please keep it this way, ha? So stay with me so I won't feel lonely here in Zoom. Anyway, I know you're all tense from earlier. So to help you ease your senses, I just remembered an old song I used to perform before. So the song goes like this. Are you ready? If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. Familiar? Again, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. All right. So are you happy? Are you happy ba? Medyo deep, no? So let us know you're happy by dropping off clapping emojis in the comment section. More clapping emojis, the happier we are. So please, especially to those who are with us on FB Live, rain us with your clapping emojis in the comment section. Yeah, let's start this championship round with positivity and happiness. All right, so I can see happiness in our comment section already. And thank you for a joyful participation, everyone. You proved that I really don't have to open Coke for happiness. Anyway, so now I bet you're hyped up and excited to start this championship round. Once again, good afternoon and welcome. The Mindanao State University College of Law Iligan Extension Campus, along with its very own Debate and Moot Society, proudly bring you the new normal Dean's Cup 2021, the Inter-Campus Debate Tournament Championship Round. So how's our debaters? How are you? Kumusta na kayo? Are you happy din ba? I'm sure. Clap emojis naman yan, mga debaters. Walang clap emojis? A heart? Oh, yan. Very good. Once again, good afternoon and welcome to this year's Ultimate Battle of Wits. I'd like to extend my congratulations to MSU General Santos, MSU Marawi, and MSU Iligan for a job well done earlier. It takes will and perseverance to make this activity a reality. Thus, today calls for a grand celebration. And it is my distinct pleasure to introduce to you the reason why we're all here gathered today and by pushing to make this event possible. To give her message, may I call to the virtual stage the brain behind the 2021 Dean's Cup, no other than the beautiful, brilliant, and supportive Dean of MSU College of Law, Attorney Annabel Cañazares Mindalano. Let's give her clapping emojis.
Thank you so much, Rowie. Thank you so much, everyone. Indeed, it has been a long day for everyone. It has been not only a long day, but actually long days because you started preparing for the activities of our Law Week celebration and our MSU Diamond Anniversary celebration from about a few days ago. So it feels like your celebration once again, pre-pandemic, only that we shifted it in the digital platform, sleepless nights, excitement, all mixed up together in the preparation of all the activities. And this is one of those highlights that I am sure all the students are waiting for. And this is the capping program for our Law Week celebration. We just finished, by the way, from the legal forum, and we immediately shifted into another Zoom room, and we are streaming live via Facebook. So hello, and good afternoon. Rowie is really rubbing off on me. Kanina ganito kasi ako. Ganito lang ang parang naisip ko. Good afternoon, everyone. So since Rowie has that high energy, I have to keep up with that energy. So I'm zapped up because of your song and your voice. Okay, so I know that you are all excited. It's a good evening, almost a good afternoon, good evening, and even good morning, depending on where you are watching this final round or championship round of Dean's Cup 2021. That is the beauty of doing things the new normal way. I have mentioned this before. What cost us large amounts before what entails travel, what necessitates spending of resources is just but one click away. And the world has become smaller. Before, we could not have imagined hosting a Dean's Cup and we have viewers or participation from other parts of the globe. Rowi, murag, I feel like we are not in a Dean's Cup championship. It's like we are in a radio or a program. But anyway, the energy is really, really good. And what's this? Thank you for staying tuned for the championship round. And I know that you are all excited. Foremost, I would like to extend my congratulations to all the debating teams from the three campuses of the Mindanao State University College of Law. Despite the short notice, you accepted the challenge. So may I see, I cannot actually see, but Rowie, can you please check? Can we give or click the heart emojis for all our debaters out there, please? Yan. To ease up the tension of our debaters inside the Zoom room, no? So in Facebook Live, let us give heart reactions, love reactions for all our debaters. Congratulations, you are already winners in your own right. Unfortunately, as adjudicators, we need to drop the axe at the end of the day. So I hope that the purpose of conducting this activity will go into fruition and the momentum will just really keep on elevating. So we are looking forward to really nurturing intellectual discourse, not only inter, but intra-campus. And of course, we conducted this activity in order to forge camaraderie between and amongst enthusiasts of intellectual discourse, as I have mentioned earlier. So without much ado, I know you're all excited. Who are you rooting for? I'm rooting for all the three campuses. However, we need to proceed with this championship round. So it is between Iligan and Marawi. And I will now turn it over back to our moderator because there are still some preliminaries that need to be discussed before we begin our championship round. And thank you also to our dear adjudicators who stayed with us. So sit back, enjoy, and I hope you will finish until the completion of the final round.
Thank you so much for that, Dean. Thank you for uplifting us by your beautiful presence and compelling words. We are greatly honored to have with us today legal practitioners from across the country who shall be the adjudicators. And to know them, may I call to the virtual stage the president of MSU College of Law Iligan Extension, Debate and Moot Society, Miss Charity Jean C. Abugan.
Thank you so much, Rowie. Good afternoon once again to our distinguished panel of adjudicators. I would like to introduce first the chairperson of this round's debate round. Let's start with, of course, she took a Bachelor of Science in Engineering in Mindanao State University in Marawi City in 2003. In 2004, she also
I think we are currently experiencing a technical difficulty as of the moment. So while waiting for Charity to get back on track, I would like to check the temperature of our viewers on FB
apologies.
Live. Hi, is this you, chat? Okay.
I'm back. Apologies.
To set things up. Are you ready? Thank you. All right, I'll turn over the
Okay. To continue, our chairperson for the panel of the adjudicators took up also her doctor's degree in Mindanao State University in 2011. And is currently in her Master's of Law in San Bada University, graduates Mindanao State University College of Law. She is happily married to Amir Rashid Dalano and blessed with 6 children. Ladies and gentlemen, panel of adjudicators, I present to you I will introduce our second panel of adjudicators. We have Attorney Nash Mylene Marhom Saleh. Currently, she is appointed as a court attorney in the Office of Chief Justice Alexander Mundo. Before joining his office, the Chief Justice workforce, Attorney Nash was under the tutelage of the Chief Justice Lucas Bersamin. She has worked 3 justices of the Supreme Court, including Associate Justice Jose Tugal Perez. Before joining the government, she worked as a junior associate in risk and famously also an Bara Exception, Cruz Regala Law, Special Proceedings, Conflict Laws, Statutory Code, Alternative Riches Law, and Attorney Mylene Saleh. Next, we have Attorney Leonard Mann. Attorney Leonard Mann is a private law practitioner and an associate lecturer of the MSU for the past.
Hello, Madam Moderator. May I respectfully suggest that why don't we just ask our adjudicators to briefly introduce himself or herself and his or her debating experience, or an enthusiast of intellectual discourse, maybe, unless there is anyone else, because I believe our president is experiencing internet connection problems, probably because of the rain that is currently happening. So what do you suggest? No, because I know that those who are watching us online would also want to hear clearly. And what is the suggestion of the body? Can we just do that? We will just reinvent this. Fiscal Lauren mentioned, we will just introduce ourselves in a not so conventional way we are supposed to be introduced. Can we just do that na lang? Can we do that? Okay,
That would
so
be
let us.
great, Dean.
Okay, perfect. So let us have Sir Man first, because you are there, sir, already on the spotlight. So let us have you remain on the spotlight for now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Attorney Leonard Mann. I'm here now in General Santos City. I debated when I was in college in the University of Santo Tomas during my college days. My major was behavioral science. That's why I'm very behaved. And when I became a lawyer, I do not anymore debate. I argue a lot in court because I've been practicing law privately for the past 15 years. I also argue a lot during class discussions because I've been teaching law for the past 15 years. I'm a member of the Toastmasters Club here in General Santos City, so more or less I have some experience in public speaking, and good luck to all our debaters.
Thank you for that, attorney. And now, next, to introduce herself to us. Thank you so much for your kind generosity on birds. I'd like to call on our virtual stage, Attorney Nash Marhom Saleh.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Attorney Nash. You can just call me Nash. I'm currently working at the Office of the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Alexander Gesmundo, and I used to work with then Chief Justice Lucas Bersamin and Justice Jose Portugal Perez. And I've started debating since grade school until college. I only stopped debating in law school, which is kind of ironic, but I intended to um, continue with my advocacies through my human rights organizations and my writing skills. And although I've been away from the debating scene, I was the PLM advisor, the PLM debating team. And now I am teaching special proceedings, conflict of laws, and statutory construction. And I would like to welcome everyone, and it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Attorney Nash. And now, next on the list is Attorney Prosecutor Mary Grace Ventura.
Prosecutor Lauren Lau, I believe.
All right, let's proceed to Prosecutor Lauren Lau. Yes.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Yes,
Prosec.
my name is Lauren Halilalao. I'm with the Office of the Provincial Prosecutor of Lanao del Sur. I used to debate in high school, not in college, because I was too scared of the debaters in Mindanao State University, but I joined mooters in law school. Yeah, I did law school in MSU Marawi City and did masters in QMUL. And yeah, I also teach both campuses of Iligan and Marawi City. So good luck to the debaters. And yeah, I wish you luck.
Thank you so much, Prosec. And last but not the least, Attorney Alexine Bancola.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I'm attorney Asiana Alexine Adia Miralabi A. Bangcola. I used to be connected with the Bangsamoro Transition Authority. I took up a Bachelor of Arts in Consular and Diplomatic Affairs at the Del Sol College of St. Benil and took up my Juris Doctor at the Arellano University School of Law. I was a high school collegiate as well as a law school debater. I also had my moot experience when I was in law school. So alhamdulillah, in 2018, when we joined the ANC Square of the Firm debates, we were fortunate enough to win the championship for the 16th season. And the year after that, alhamdulillah, I was able to take the bar, and the year after that, be admitted to the bar. Currently, I teach legal writing as well as Business Organization 1 at the Mindanao State University College of Law, Marawi campus. Thank you very much, and good luck to all of the debaters today.
Thank you, Attorney Bancola. Thank you very much to our adjudicators for sharing your wonderful life and experiences, and that left us in awe and and I am so amazed with all your accomplishments and experiences. And now I'd like to turn over the floor to our dean and chairperson of this event, Dean Annabel Cañazares Mindalano.
All right, good afternoon once again. And just so you know that I have a right to also adjudicate. I am really a debate enthusiast, although I started only in college, unlike Attorney Nash, who started as in her very, very early days. So I joined the debate varsity of the Mindanao State University, or the MSU rostrum, way back in college. When I went to law school, I started in the Gensan extension class, and there was no debating team at that moment. And so I, together with other debate enthusiasts circa 2007-2008, established the Debate Society of Gensan. I am not sure, though, how it went inactive after a few years. And then I transferred to Marawi. And so in Marawi, by the way, when I was in Gensan, technically this is the second Dean's Cup, but I recall in 2009, if my memory serves me right, I was able to participate in the exhibition debate between General Santos and Marawi, and Fiscal Lauren Lau, and now the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, VCZ, were amongst the adjudicators at that time. So, and we won. Thank you, Fiscal Lauren, for that experience. And so when I became a lawyer in 2014, and of course, I started here in Iligan. I started in 2014. There was also no debate society here, and so I also advocated for the establishment of the Debate and Moot Society. So that's how it came into life, and I am so happy that it is so alive and kicking and continuously growing. And Marawi also has just launched the gay bill. I'm not sure if voluntarily or under my compulsion, but I am just so happy that they now have platforms to unleash their words and wits. So that's it for me. And so without much ado, this is the championship rounds. So may I request, will you still be introducing the debaters, Madam MC? Or should I, considering the connection problem of the president?
Yes, attorney. Please, thank you so much. Dean, please, thank you so much.
Okay, so may I ask the support of the technical team to pin the debaters as they are called. Debating on the motion, let it be resolved that the protections of international law conventions and treaties should not apply to combatants from terrorist organization. On the affirmative side, we have Iligan campus. On the negative side, we have Marawi campus. And here are your brilliant debaters. Ladies and gentlemen, for the affirmative or the Iligan campus, we have Mr. Abdul Khalif Amindato. We have Miss Rohani Maguro and Miss Ahmida Mamakutaw. On the negative side, Marawi campus, we have Abdul Hata Derico, Nur Halim Karim, and Muhammad Ayman Langlang. So I am sure the debaters are ready. So fellow adjudicators, I know you are also ready. So may I call this house into order? May I ask for the debaters to be spotlighted or pinned already so that we can begin? All right. So to open the championship round of the Dean's Cup 2021, may I call the first speaker of the affirmative side.
When we think of people dying, the disturbed families, the crushed dreams and hopes of women and children, all of which are done by the same people who chose to live a life in contrary to what we all have been aiming for, and that is peace and harmony. We don't think it happened by accident, but really because the perpetrators of evil chose to do it in their full capacity and chose to whether or not participate in the said evil act. Your affirmative will debate hardline in this motion, ladies and gentlemen. Inus vitae sed non amor humanitatis. We may end life, but not the love for love, particularly the love for humanity. Our policy is simple. As the UN Security Council, what we want to happen is to establish a new convention that will be ipso facto in nature and repeal specific provisions in international law protecting the terrorist combatants, particularly the Geneva Convention and Vienna Convention. Note that we are not abolishing the conventions. Only specific provisions safeguarding combatants will be modified. Under Chapter 7, the Security Council can take enforcement measures to maintain and restore international peace and security. Article 25 of the Geneva Convention states that the members of United Nations agree to accept and carry out the decisions of Security Council in accordance with the present charter. Article 41 of the United Nations Charter gives the Security Council the authority to use variety of measures to enforce its decisions. The Council regularly creates subsidiary organs to support or implement these measures. These organs have included international tribunals, which have tried people responsible to serious crimes under international humanitarian law, or in cases where the government has requested the assistance of the Council in investigating and prosecuting cases. Provided these policies, Your Honors, it is now the burden of the negative to provide that the existing policies are effective. Your Honors, the existing laws and policies under our convention do not address the problem on terrorism. That is why we still have the civil wars. The urgency and necessity to do it is very evident in the crimes that we have been witnessing over the years. Let's be clear here. We're not talking about the state versus state wars, but rather a war between state and terrorist groups. Your Honor, we're giving the states the right to do whatever they think is needed to control the cyclical problem, which is terrorism. But what's clear and what we want to happen is the ICC to be passive on matters like this. Obviously, we're not campaigning for the states to torture out information from these combatants or terrorist combatants. But if they ever do so, we will not prosecute the states. We have to remember that terrorists' ideology is fragmentary. But let's characterize who are these combatants. Your Honor, we're not talking about freedom fighters. We are talking about internationally recognized terrorist groups that have been doing evil in their actions. Let's take a glance in our history and remember the case of U.S. Embassy bombings in Kenya afforded by Al-Qaeda, killing 224
Mr. Speaker?
individuals. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Do you agree that terrorism is similar to genocide, torture, and other forms of human rights violation?
Yes, Your Honor.
That it is use cogents. Terrorism is use cogents. Although terrorism is considered use cogents, there is no universal definition of terrorism. So how do you reconcile the lack of definition of terrorism and treatment of terrorists?
Your Honor, use cogents are not fixed principle. It is not a fixed principle. And when we talk about terrorism, Your Honor, we are referring to these acts sacrificing thousands of lives and even leaving fatalities in the states who have this kind of terrorists in their jurisdiction. But let me proceed with my argument, Your Honor. We also have, other than the U.S. bombings, we also have the Cinema Rex fire in Iran, taking 420 lives in 1978. We can see, ladies and gentlemen, that this cycle of war has been happening and terrorism has been existing because our laws and policies under International Criminal Court is very lenient, and that it does not prosecute or it does not prosecute this terrorist, ladies and gentlemen.
Mr. Speaker,
Yes, Your
are you
Honor.
are you aware that IHL, International Humanitarian Law, applies to combatants or terrorists, if you may, if they abide by the laws of war?
Yes, Your Honor. But we think that there's a need for us to revise or to modify the provisions because the kind of protection we're giving to these terrorists or combatants in the guise of policies or in the guise of calling them just combatants humanizes their action or justifies their actions. We think that those actions which are considered to be a crime against humanity it should be dealt with a serious let's say serious policy that will make them liable for whichever crimes they have done in against the humanity. Protecting the combatants, Your Honor, from unjust and maltreatment before the international law and treaties does not equate to sacrificing the humanity from the evil deeds of the wrongdoers. Your Honor, we submit to the idea that protectionary measures are needed to ensure that there will be no abuse of power. But it means that we're continually exposing the very humanity. Thank you.
We now proceed to the interpellation by the first speaker of the negative side.
Good afternoon, Dean. Good afternoon, Your Honors, and good afternoon, Mr. Speaker. First question, let me clarify on how are you going to safeguard competence? Is it by making ICC a passive agency of the international community? Is that right?
No, Mr. Speaker. What we're going to do is we're not going to safeguard these combatants because we're going to deal with them seriously for the crimes that they have done.
Okay, so I hope that you clarify on what will be your proposal on how are you going to be serious in dealing with this competence. And
Speaker,
second question, Mr.
listened to
Speaker,
my
are you
argument
my
earlier.
time, Mr. Speaker, my time. Mr. Speaker, are you aware that the Geneva Convention of 1977 provided for a classification of competence?
Yes.
And what are these competence, Mr. Speaker?
We have the privileged and the unprivileged combatants.
We have the lawful and unlawful competence. And what we are discussing in this debate are, which is which, the lawful or the unlawful competence?
Both combatants, Your
No,
Honor.
we are actually referring to unlawful competence. Those competents that did not follow or observe IHL at the same time they committed terror attack and are not protected by the Geneva
No, Mr.
Convention
Speaker,
nor
we've
the
already
Vienna Convention.
characterized
Mr. Speaker, do you think that it is brutal to divest protection to combatants who also needs the same protection from the international community?
No.
Yes or no?
No.
And do you think that it is necessary to exclude these combatants from the coverage of the protection provided by the international conventions?
Yes, that's why we're pushing for another convention.
I believe, Mr. Speaker, that there is a misconception on the competence here, which I will be explaining later on my argumentation. Thank you. That will be all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let us now proceed to the first speaker of the negative side to open their case.
Ladies and gentlemen, when one falls blind on believing on an ideology, one can be considered a victim of such ideology. Madam Chair, Your Honors, members of this most imposing congregation, good evening. Your Honors, the negative side believes in the fact that combatants from terrorist organizations are not merely merciless killers, but also victims of what they believe in and what they are fighting for. This is where we highlight the necessity of affording protection to these combatants who we believe are also victims of their own group's ideologies. Your Honors, the very nature of terrorist organizations are founded on ideologies, and these ideologies are, we believe, can actually victimize. And as a result, whoever is involved in these conflicts are also all victims of these ideologies. Allow me to present some of the reasons why it is necessary to extend the scope of protection afforded by international law conventions and treaties and apply the same to combatants from terrorist organizations. First, as I have already mentioned in my opening statement, combatants are also victims of war. In that sense, that they shall be afforded equal protection by the international conventions and treaties in the international community. And second,
Mr. Speaker,
yes.
with your characterization of terrorists, quote unquote, as victims of their circumstance, would you or are you saying that, for example, Daesh, which employs sexual slavery, would you characterize these combatants as being victims of their circumstances?
Yes, in one way, we can define them as victims since many of these members of these groups are actually forced to do so or participate at the expense of their liberty and freedom and the fear of preserving their life, liberty, and property. May I continue, ma'am? So first, as I have already mentioned in my opening statement, combatants are also victims of war in that sense that they shall be afforded equal protection by international convention and treaties. And second, this is to prevent the risk of further ill treatment when a terrorist falls under the territories of enemy state. My first argument focuses on our proposal to give equal protection to unlawful combatants from terrorist groups that lawful combatants are afforded with by international convention and treaties. Your Honors, who are these lawful,
Mr.
ma'am?
Speaker, all right, I would like to be recognized.
Ma'am?
All right.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
Hamas and other terrorist organizations as labeled by countries like Canada, Australia, and the US.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you think these terrorist organizations were formed?
They were formed because of their ideologies, because of the ideologies that
And
they
these
are believing in.
ideologies do you believe that these ideologies are formed for national liberation and self-determination?
Some of these are formed because of those reasons, ma'am, but others are formed because some members are forced to participate at the expense, at the exchange of their the preservation of their life as well as their liberty, ma'am.
So are you equating now as terrorism? Are you writing a distinction? Are you drawing a
Yes,
distinction
ma'am.
between
The two.
terrorists who are with no ideologies and with ideologies?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
So as I was saying, ladies and gentlemen, who are these lawful and who are these unlawful combatants? Lawful combatants are those who are members of armed forces of a country, while unlawful combatants are those that are coming from non-state organizations, such as terrorist groups like that of Al-Qaeda. The status of the latter in the present Geneva Convention will tell us that they are not afforded protection or the status of being a prisoner of war. That is why, when they are captured, they are not entitled to any protection and can be subjected to military tribunals of the enemy state. This is what we believe is a great example of violation of the equal protection rights of these combatants. What we fear in the negative side is for the life, liberty, and the deprivation of their inherent rights as human beings under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights from the moment of their capture by the enemy state. Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights will tell
Mr.
us that
Speaker.
all human beings are, yes, ma'am?
Are you aware of any terrorists, if you may, that have been afforded his day in court and then
No, ma'am.
you are not?
Yes, ma'am. That is why
Okay.
we are proposing for a greater conventions or treaties that will focus on the protection of these terrorist groups or members of these
Mr.
terrorist
Speaker,
groups.
I was
Yes, ma'am.
saying there was a UK national who was who was let out after he served imprisonment for terrorism cases, but then
Yes, ma'am.
again committed again similar crimes. How long do we engage this kind of people in giving them legal protection?
I believe that they shall be afforded protection in the end, ladies and gentlemen, because these members are also victims, human beings, victims of what they are believing in. That's why it is very clear, it is very important to take note that several or the Universal Declaration of Human Rights gives us the idea that they shall be afforded also of equal protection of laws. And this was even reinforced by several of its articles, including Article 10, which provides that everybody is entitled in full equality to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal in the determination of their rights and obligation and of any criminal charges against them. But what is happening in the status quo, ladies and gentlemen, is that these terrorists are omitted from the scope of protection provided under these laws and treaties. Again, we reiterate that these combatants are also victims of their ideologies, of their group's ideologies, and all of the armed conflicts that they are
Mr.
involved
Speaker,
in. That is why,
Mr.
ma'am?
Speaker, but you would agree that there are separate normative regimes that are governing both terrorism and armed conflict, although they have a common ground.
Yes, ma'am. But this does not give essential protection to these terrorist groups or members of these terrorist groups. That's why in our side, we are proposing for an effective treaty or an international convention that will answer or solve the problem on the deprivation of the protection of the members of these terrorist groups. So as I was saying, the status quo calls for a necessity to give protection to combatants from terrorist groups as they are prone to further ill treatment and abuse, ladies and gentlemen. With that, I believe time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the first speaker of the affirmative side to interpolate.
Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, ma'am.
I would appreciate you answering yes or no alone. On my first,
You are muted, Mr. Amindato. Okay, please start from the beginning.
yes. Good afternoon again, Mr. Speaker. My first question is: are you aware of what utilitarian principle is?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And you know that utilitarian principle protects the general or the good, which is going to be majority.
Yes, that's why it is essential to protect these members of these terrorist groups also.
All right. On my second question, do you agree that the provisions of Geneva Convention and Vienna Convention protects life
Yes,
of the combatants, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Mhm. And isn't it true as well that these people that we're protecting under this legal provisions, as you call it, are also taking life of someone's life or others' life?
And that is because they are blinded by their
No.
group's
Yes or no?
ideologies, Mr. Speaker.
So you agree?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So you also understand that these combatants have caused death and posed great threats to the vast majority, right? And this could be somewhat a reason for this innocent.
Yes, but that
people
doesn't
to
give us
suffer
the
for the
right to
long
divest protection over these terrorist groups.
Mm-hmm. But on your
Pardon, Mr.
contention,
Speaker?
you're like saying that we should just forgive this terrorist groups because under the legal provisions they should
I
be
don't mean to
protected.
say
But
to
you're not
forgive, but to
addressing.
give them opportunity
This is
to
my time,
access
Mr.
equal
Speaker. This is
protection.
my time.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, you're not addressing the very essence that these people are actually posing threats to the vast majority, and we should respond to that, right? How do you
But
think we
that
should
doesn't
respond to
warrant
that?
us to respond negatively at all, right?
Mhm. And how do you think we should resolve that?
We should give them ample protection also, so we can solve this in a judicially approved
The
process.
provisions under Geneva Convention have been existing for the longest time. Did it address the very problem?
No, that's why we are proposing for
Exactly.
another
No, it did
convention.
not address the very problem. That's why we're pushing for new conventions to
The
occur.
same thing, but our
providing that we are the
convention will
Security
essentially
Council,
give
right?
them opportunity to be protected.
No further question.
Thank you. To continue the affirmative's case, we now call on the second speaker.
Good evening, Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The Iraq insurgency for almost a decade and the present civil wars existing in the Egyptian and Yemeni, the Syrian civil war are all evidence of the failing provisions of conventions that for far too long has been passive and has only benefited the very terrorists that the IHLs wants to stop. We highly regret the characterization of the first speaker on the negative, which humanizes terrorist actions by saying that terrorists are victims of circumstances. All human beings are victims of circumstances, but law exists so that we can effectively regulate how our ideologies are transcending to the rest of the nation. If we agree with the negative definition, by their logic, no criminal act should be prosecuted because every criminal is a victim of circumstance. We think the topic is fair, so it was not necessarily for negative side to go to the extent of humanizing ideologies that for far too long has killed civilians and have destroyed countries that deserve democratic rights. This is where we clarify what is the IHL really? Has it served the norms that according to the negative are important, and are these norms still acceptable in the context of long-lasting conflicts between states, parties, and terrorist
Speaker.
organizations? Yes.
Miss Speaker, yeah. We have Al Qaeda members still in Guantanamo Bay. What do you propose with these Al Qaeda members? We do
Under
not
yes, well,
we
under
do not
our
let them undergo litigation. We do not litigate their case at all.
under our convention po, the rule is that we do, under the new convention that we are proposing, the rule is that we do not grant them the privilege or the right to be released pre-conflict. They may be prosecuted, but this does not mean that in existing wars, members of Al Qaeda should necessarily be protected while wars are in conflict. So, in to address the question further, in the International Court of Justice, the Judge Antonio Trindade wrote that the principle of jus cogens is not a closed juridical category. It is an evolving concept. So effectively saying that it should be attuned to the needs of the international community. It was also ruled in the case of Nicaragua versus the United States of America, wherein the prohibition of use of force or torture is a jus cogens and peremptory norms of IHL. However, it made no application that non-use of force or torture against terrorists is also peremptory norms. So the Guantanamo Bay case necessarily is validated in this convention, especially if you are a terrorist. There are states like US, for example, the Uruguay, Syria, and among others, which allows torture in order to extract relevant informations from terrorists. So there really is no ground as well in stating that torture is not a peremptory norm, especially when used as a method for enhanced interrogation technique. That's exactly why, as US Security Council, we have the right to change these norms, especially if it's not serving the goals that we want to achieve. Provided that up to this date, civilians are still dying in conflicted countries, my first speaker argued why it's necessary to redefine this existing idea in Geneva and Vienna Convention, particularly the third and fourth Geneva Convention. Yes,
Speaker.
Are you of the position that, considering your statements on the use of torture, allowable use of torture, are you of the position then that if, let's say, a member of a terrorist organization surrenders, throws down his or her arms, becomes a non-combatant, international humanitarian law protection should still not apply to that person?
Effectively, ma'am, under the new policy, it should be a combatant who should be subjected to the torture if the state exercises the discretion to subject that terrorist to torture and other rights that they should not be enjoying. So first, we want to argue to the benefit for state combatants who are tasked to crack down the likes of ISIS, Al Qaeda, Boko Haram, and their successors and other internationally identified terrorists. The legal definition of
Speaker.
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you agree with me that there is no universal definition of terrorism?
There is no universal definition of terrorism, ma'am, but in 2004, the Security Council adopted Resolution 1566, which
Yes.
necessarily provided that terrorist acts are those committed, including against civilians, with the intent to cause, for example, a death or serious bodily injury or taking hostages, and lastly, constituting offenses with the scope that are defined in international conventions. So if the problem really is categorizing whether a terrorist whether a combatant is terrorist or not, we can incorporate that in our policy. We think this debate should necessarily on whether we should stick with status quo or not. So I would like to proceed with the idea that state combatants, unlike terrorist groups, are held.
Yes, Miss.
Miss Speaker,
Okay, sorry, can I have a follow-up? I'll just have a follow-up question. So do you also agree that 90% of those listed terrorist groups are Muslim organizations also?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that would be all. Thank you. Yes, sir, man.
Miss Speaker, should we categorize groups who kill unbelievers in the name of religious beliefs like jihad?
We think that when we categorize people as terrorists, it should be blinded of what is the religion or not of the terrorist. So if that person is practicing Islam or claiming to be practicing Islam and eventually executing terrorism to proceed with that ideology, we think they should still be subjected to international humanitarian laws.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. You may proceed.
So state combatants, as I have said, unlike terrorist groups, are held hostage by these abstract rules that are already being broken by terrorists in times of conflict. We aver that while as nations and members of the UN Security Council, we do place high regards to human rights, The case of terrorists are not comparable to common crimes. Unlike murder that are subjected to criminal justice systems, the gravity of the crimes committed under a terrorist organization are not forgotten in a year or so. These are crimes that constitutes instilling fear to civilians for generations. So the effects of these crimes are intergenerational and depriving them of the right to life, liberty, and to be treated with dignity. We think that the gravity of the crime cannot be regulated by a regular criminal justice system. That's why we think that extraordinary measures should be taken in order to address the intergenerational terrorism that has been existing for such a long time. We imprison criminals in state countries with the hope of reforming them, but we think terrorists cannot be afforded of the same kind of privilege. Thank you.
Interpellation by the second negative speaker.
Good afternoon, Ms. Speaker.
Good afternoon, Speaker.
Yes, Madam Speaker. So first, are you aware that human beings have inalienable rights?
Yes.
Okay, so would you also agree with me that terrorists are also human beings?
Yes.
Okay, so would you agree with me if I say that humans are not objects of terrorism?
Yes, but humans can employ terrorism.
Okay, so you said earlier that members of Al-Qaeda should also be protected. Is that right?
I did not say that.
In the Guantanamo Bay.
I did not say they should be protected. I said they should be subjected to the new convention.
Okay, so let me check. You mentioned earlier that torture is a peremptory norm, right?
Yes.
Okay, no further questions, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. And now to proceed with the negatives case, the second the second speaker, please.
The Universal Declaration of Human Rights provides in its preamble that the recognition of the inherent dignity and of the equal and inalienable rights of all members of the human family is the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. Your honors, worthy opponents, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. So before I proceed to my constructive, let me reassess the stance of the affirmative side. First, we think that this is a glaring and a gross act from the affirmative side to actually say that they will empower the United Nations Council by modifying certain conventions and treaties. We see that this is a disregard of the peremptory norms or use cogents that are generally accepted in the international law, which I will discuss later. And at the same time, we believe that the second speaker of the affirmative side, your honors, actually didn't engage into the characterization of the terrorists that the first speaker provided. The first speaker provided that these terrorists are the terrorists who have ideologies. That's why we actually characterize them as human beings in the first place, because these are the kinds of terrorists that we want to present in this debate, ladies and gentlemen. So moving on to my constructive, ladies and gentlemen, I have two submissions for this afternoon's debate. First, that the protection of international law conventions and treaties should apply to combatants from terrorist organizations because it protects the inalienable rights of all members of the human family. And second, because it reinforces the notion that human beings are not objects of terrorism. Onto my first submission, your honors, that the protection of international conventions and treaties should apply to combatants from terrorist organizations because it protects the inalienable rights of all members of the human family. Your honors, when we speak of human beings, we speak of certain inalienable rights that a person inherently possesses and cannot be taken away from that person, regardless of the situation, one's ideology, and affiliation. This is the very foundation of one's dignity and essence as a person. that whenever you place a person, be it in Africa, in Middle East, in America, these persons are accorded certain basic inalienable rights that cannot be dispensed with, your honors. According to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, inalienable human rights include the right to life, the right to liberty and freedom, the right to pursue happiness, the right to freely exercise your religion, the right to a fair trial and due process of law, and the right to be free from torture. In the same manner, your honors, individuals or all individuals are deemed equal as human beings and by virtue of the discrimination or as human beings and by virtue of the inherent dignity of each human person. Your honors, all human beings are entitled to their human rights without discrimination of any kind, such as race, color, gender, ethnicity, age, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, disability, property, birth, or other status as explained by the human rights treaty bodies. But we ask, does it make any difference if we accord the same protection to combatants of terrorist organizations? Definitely no, your honors. Again, terrorists are human beings. They possess inalienable human rights just like everybody else. In fact, as articulated,
Mr. Speaker,
yes, your honor.
do you think that when these terrorists kill and stopped believing in humanity, they thereby surrender their own humanity, that uh, they're not anymore entitled to protection under international law?
Your Honor, as subjects of international law, we believe that we should not stoop down to their level. We think that even if this person or these terrorist organizations or terrorists actually went down to that level to actually give up their humanity, we think that the states, the international organizations, and other entities in the international arena should not stoop down to that level. Yes, Your Honor. So in fact, as articulated by our first speaker, these terrorists should be seen as victims rather than perpetrators of injustice or terrors. Remember that these persons are subjected to deliberate brainwashing and thorough and systematic indoctrination. But why is it important to see them as victims rather than as perpetrators
Mr.
of terror?
Speaker, I have a question.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, in the principle of distinction, it is required that the state must distinguish between combatants and non-combatants, correct? So
Yes, Your Honor.
The Caucasian male who killed 49 Muslims in New Zealand inside the mosque, is that terrorism? Is that a form of terrorism, yes or no?
Your Honor, the definition of terrorism is subjective, especially if we play that in the international arena, where countries with authorities in power can actually legitimize their claims just to meet their own ends, Your Honor, which I will be discussing later on, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Yes, so this is because we should recognize that there are other significant actors in the playing arena, that these combatants are not the ones who are who initiated acts of terror solely. To look at them as perpetrators, Your Honor, is to discredit the existence of peddlers of their ideology and its support system. But can we veer away from the norms of international law? The answer is no. Some rights, which include inalienable rights, Your Honor, are recognized as having a special status as peremptory norms of customary international law or jus cogens, which means that no derogation is admissible under any circumstance that they prevail, in particular over other international obligations, contrary to what the first speaker in the affirmative said. As to my second argumentation, Your Honors, that the protection of international law conventions and treaties should apply to combatants from terrorist organizations because it reinforces the notions that humans are not objects of terrorism. Your Honors would like to submit that in the midst of terrorist attacks, humans are also victims of such acts. In every encounter, humans are treated as mere objects and tools to advance a particular group's cause or ideology. With that, we are very proud to oppose, Your Honors.
Speaker, aye, time.
All right. It's already time. So we now invite the second speaker of the affirmative side to interpolate.
Madam Speaker, I will start with my interpellation. Mr. Speaker, do you agree that terrorists, lawful or unlawful alike, are terrorists nonetheless? Yes or no?
Qualified, yes.
So you agree that they have participated in killings and rape at some point because they are members of terrorist groups, right? Yes or
We
no?
already said yes. They are humans still.
So you said that the right to life is very important. Am I right?
An alienable right, yes, Madam
So
Speaker.
you agree that thousands of civilian lives have been civilians have been killed because of terrorists in the Middle East, right?
Not necessarily, Madam Speaker.
So you agree now that more lives have been lost because we are making right to life absolute for terrorists.
It's not the sole reason, Madam Speaker.
So are you aware then that more people are dying under the hands of terrorist groups compared to countries wherein terrorism does not necessarily exist? Yes or no?
No, Madam Speaker.
So do you agree that the existing provisions in the Geneva Convention is not necessarily effective in preventing intergenerational terrorism? Yes or no?
Qualified no.
So since it's a qualified no, can you qualify your answer later? I would like to ask then, do you agree that in the prosecution of crimes against humanity, terrorist organizations are not subjected to ICC because only individuals are subjected to ICC? Yes or no?
Yes, Madam Speaker.
That means that we do not have an existing arbiter that can hold terrorist organizations.
Exactly our proposal, Madam Speaker.
So you agree that it is a high time and necessary to amend existing provisions to address that problem, yes or no?
Our first speaker argued on that, on our proposal, Madam Speaker.
No further question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, debaters. We now proceed to the third speaker of the affirmative side to close the affirmative's case.
Ladies and gentlemen, your honors, on the line in this championship round are humanity, honor, and the right to address our own affairs. Let me tell you why the affirmative side will take this debate. Because the negative side kept on talking about how terrorists are still human, but really, there was never an underground analysis about what the repercussions are when we take or when we don't take away a person's humanity. Because where do their arguments lead? What are the pragmatics of their cases? What are their implications and solutions? Nothing. What did we bring to you coming from the affirmative? The idea that when you ground our proposition in the real world, our framework is the only viable solution to counter the narratives of these combatants and these people's atrocities and crimes against humanity, which strips them of any humanity at that. We recognize that these people are at a somewhat extent victims of circumstances and that they're human beings at the end of the day. We recognize that they live and die, and sometimes there are actually repercussions or there are challenges that they experience in their life. However, what we don't agree with is humanizing the very atrocious act that these people have already committed, killing thousands and thousands of individuals who are innocent at that. Under our model, these people are stripped away from their humanity the moment they decide to bomb buildings and rape innocent women and really proliferate their false ideologies. On the contrary, there has never been a concrete solution coming from the negative side to counter these very atrocious acts. Their only banner is that these people are human beings and that they deserve the rights protected for by the international human rights. Further, it is indeed unfortunate that under our model for us to torture this. Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Do you agree with me that some of these, if not all, some of these terrorist organizations, as labeled by these countries and these organizations, were for national liberation and self-determination, which is valid under our jurisdiction? For example, in the province of North Cotabato versus GRP, which allows self-determination.
Yes, Madam Speaker, but yes, Your Honor, but the method and the mechanisms towards the self-determination is what is problematic in our case.
Okay, do you also agree that in the Arab Convention for the Suppression of Terrorism, it was defined that it includes armed struggle against foreign corporation and aggression for liberation and self-determination as shall not be regarded as an offense?
Not necessarily, Your Honor, because under our model, we characterize terrorism as having inflicted arms no matter the circumstances of that individual are. So we try to look at the results of these kinds of acts towards self-determination. Now allow me to proceed. Two questions I want to answer in my speech. Number one is, under which model do we best serve the state's capacity to prevent and combat terrorism? Under our model, we further the hardline stance of the state from the society in general. We are trying to afford the states the principle and the right to treat and really prevent terrorism at large in their country. We forward the principle for terrorism to never be thought of as a legitimate response to state oppression. We have to be able to tell our people that the objective of rising up against other people, destroying them by the millions, raping them by the thousands, is something that we can never tolerate. MSU Marawi's sheer unresponsiveness to our framework not only cost them this debate, but the entire championship. There were no clear alternatives and mechanisms coming from the negative side, which should as easily combat terrorism at that.
Miss
And second
Speaker,
question. Yes, po.
yes, it has been the trend, no, in after 9/11 and the fall of the ISIS in the Middle East, that no country is willing to, litigate the cases of these terrorists. Now, thousands are still detained in squalid detention camps in the Middle East. These are some of them European citizens, but their home countries refuse. In fact, they've been stripped of their citizenship, so they cannot be prosecuted in their home countries. And the Middle East certainly refuses to engage them also. What do we do with these terrorists or detainees?
Under our model, Your Honor, we are weaponizing the state to be able for them to prosecute these terrorists in their own very shores without having the repercussions of being accountable to international courts. What we're trying to say is that they are able to prosecute these terrorists in their own courts.
Yeah, you can go.
Allow me to proceed, Your Honor. The second question is, where do we best address public interest? As we have already told you, terrorism is classified as a crime against humanity, meaning that the moment these terrorists committed their atrocious act, they are stripped away of the humanity at large. And so by pushing for our model or for our paradigm, we go for the public interest and the humanity of people at large, these innocent individuals that are victims of these terrorists that have no prior solution or has been the victim of the passive solution.
Speaker, the question is, your framework juxtaposed with the status quo of prosecuting those that are mentioned by the other adjudicators, did that also translate with the existing, what's this, abilities even of state parties or other participants? So how is it now in your framework, can you ensure, juxtapose with the status quo, that you can actually prosecute them and really bring justice for the victims of, as you brand them, terrorists?
Yes. Right now, Your Honor, there is actually no arbitrary body that is able to prosecute these terrorist organizations. We only have the ICC, which can only prosecute a certain individual. What we're trying to do under our model is to mobilize these states as a nation for them to be able to prosecute these tagged combatants from terrorist organization, and for them to be able to address their affairs on their own. And for that, we are very proud to propose.
Thank you. The third negative to interpolate.
Good afternoon, Ms. Speaker, and good afternoon, Your Honors. May I now begin with my interpellation?
Good afternoon.
Yes, Ms. Speaker, is it the submission of your House that terrorists are evils?
Yes.
Therefore, it is your submission that it is fine to torture terrorists.
Not necessarily. It depends on the discretion of the states. We're mobilizing.
Discretion of the state. Okay. Now, you are aware that a considerable portion of the terrorist combatants, as we see nowadays, such as those members of ISIS, are children and women?
We're talking about the combatants here, Your Honor. Not
they
women
are combatants. Realistically, most of these combatants are a portion of our children.
And women.
Anyway, You are therefore proposing torture against children and women.
We're not proposing, Your Honor. We're merely telling you that terrorists are not worthy of the protection provided for by the
Next question. You mentioned. I'm sorry. Next question. You mentioned that terrorism as a repercussion of taking the humanity of terrorists is your counter narrative.
That's not a counter narrative, Your Honor. That's a fact and provided for by the.
Okay, so you mean that your counter narrative or your proposition is using terrorism against terrorism alike?
We are proposing drastic measures to address the drastic ideology.
I'm sorry. Okay, yes, then you would agree with me that lacking international agreements on the differences of norms governing the use of force undermine the very moral stance of the international world arena against terrorism.
Not necessarily, Your Honor.
Like because it is fine to use force against me, the terrorist combatant does not disintegrate the very moral stance that the world employ against terrorism?
That's not mutually exclusive under our model, Your Honor, because that will also exist under your model.
I don't think so, but that's my last question, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. And to finally close the championship round, ladies and gentlemen, may I call this third speaker of the negative side.
The greatest mistake of the world is the use of force against force, resulting to the pulverizing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima with its 135,000 and 36,000 citizens respectively, just because Japan is not surrendering during the World War II. Your Honors, terrorism, according to the United States Institute of Peace, is both complex and emotive. Complex because it combines so many different aspects of human experience, and emotive both because experience of terrorist acts arouse tremendous feelings, and because those who see terrorist acts as justified often have strong feelings concerning the rightness of the use of violence. Your Honors, allow me to argue on the practicability of applying the protections afforded from the international conventions and treaties to combatants of terrorist organizations. For my first argument, protection is a right that should be accorded to all of us, with emphasis, Your Honors, on all of us. And whilst combatants of terrorist organizations are considered unlawful combatants or even belligerents, it is our humble submission that not according combatants of terrorist organizations of the protections provided for by international law and treaties is tantamount to the full devaluing of combatants of terrorist organizations to the lowest scheme of humans, that nothing of the same rights must be accorded to them. Meaning, our submission is that the world should protect these combatants from whatever organizations they may be. Your Honors, the U.S. Supreme Court in Ex parte Querine 317 provided that unlawful combatants are likewise subject to capture and detention, but in addition, they are subject to trial and punishment by military tribunals. Now, it also provides that belligerents are generally deemed not to be entitled to the status of prisoners of war, but offenders against the law of war, subject to trial and punishment by military tribunals. Now, supposedly, the affirmative side, Your Honor, should have proved to us that giving the protections provided for by international law and treaties to combatants of terrorist organizations is inimical and destructive to the interests of the states and the world as a whole. In contrast, on our side, it is practically our submission that providing the same protections from international law and treaties to combatants of terrorist organizations bolster the interest of the states and the whole world, thus resulting from the though long but gradual eradication of terrorism. Note, Your Honors, that combatants of terrorist organizations. Yes, Your Honor.
I'm curious why in your opening statement you made mention about the nuclear bombs dropped in Japan in World War II.
This is where we
support your cause.
Yes, Your Honor. This is where we put an emphasis on how force is used against force in itself, which is what is being proposed by the affirmative side. We cannot win a war just by merely using force against another force. We are only prolonging the kind of.
Are you saying that the use of nuclear bombs was not tactically justified under international law?
Well, tactically, it could be justified, Your Honor, but on this other aspects of a human living, it cannot be justified at all, Your Honor. Yes,
Mr.
honest.
Speaker, yes, I would
Yes,
like
ma'am.
to ask again. Okay, do you agree that we must eradicate, we must fight terrorism?
Yes, Your Honor, and we agree that we can only do so through our proposition, and the proposition of the affirmative side will not help on that.
Do you agree that if we are not able to fight terrorism, then we are actually preserving the values of these terrorists? We weaken the support of, we are actually strengthening the support against these, for these radicals, and
We
we're weakening the confidence of the public in the rule of law.
We believe, Your Honor, that there are already existing international measures as well as domestic measures in fighting terrorism, which are enough. Our proposition is that we should be putting up a protection on those who are who deserve the protection that is accorded by the international law and treaties. May I proceed, Your Honor?
Carry on.
The 1997 Convention Against Terrorist Bombings and the 1999 Convention Against the Financing of Terrorism contains the following provision, Your Honors. Any person who is taken into custody or regarding whom any other measures are taken or proceedings are carried out pursuant to this convention shall be guaranteed fair treatment, including enjoyment of all rights and guarantees in conformity with the law. Now, the quoted provisions, Your Honor, provides for protection of that are not accorded to combatants of terrorist organizations. Our fear, Your Honor, is that the non-protection of combatants from terrorist organizations with the protections provided for by international law and treaties only enforces the very definition of terrorism, the usage of violence to arrive at the desired political or economic goals, for instance. Isn't it violent not to protect someone just because that someone is violent? To say yes is like saying that you can bury a bullet at the head of your violent bully friend. Now, in effect, Your Honors, will the not according of protections of international law and treaties to terrorist combatants not justify the terrorist agenda?
Mr.
Yes, Your Honor.
Speaker, so how can you, in your paradigm, translate your proposal into prevention of terrorism in the international arena or in the international community?
We put up a measure, Your Honor, in our proposal where we can protect these people and take them away from the spheres of terrorism. And we protect them by putting them in a judicial process or in a process where they can be corrected. Our submission, Your Honor, is that we can only defeat terrorism through protecting one another, not through alienating a portion of the population of the world just because they have become or have been part of the terroristic agenda or the terrorist side of the world. Now, it is our humble submission as well, Your Honor, that terrorism is founded on ideology. And the only way to retract anyone or any group from terrorist activities is to destroy these ideologies from which terrorism is based or founded. And from that, we are proud to win this debate.
Thank you, debaters. And a virtual crossing of the house, and extend your traditional handshake just virtually, because we cannot do that in the... Oh, my apologies. Yeah, my apologies. My apologies. I would like to call the third speaker of the affirmative for the interpellation. Okay, so you, my apologies, yes. The third speaker of the affirmative, please, to interpellate.
Hello. Good evening, Council.
Good evening, Madam Speaker.
Okay, first question. Do you know who Che Guevara is?
Of course.
Do you know who Osama bin Laden is?
Of course.
And you would agree with me that these are terrorists that were captured by the US government but were not afforded any burial rights. Am I right?
I'm not sure if Che Guevara is considered a terrorist.
He is considered as terrorist and branded as that by the US government, but let's just proceed. Do you think, or would you agree with me that the rationale of the US government for not affording the basic right of eulogies to these kinds of terrorists is because they don't want any effect on the intergenerational portion of terrorism at large? Would you agree with me about that?
Qualified, yes.
Okay, next question. Is it then your position that our current provisions right now under the Geneva and Vienna Convention protecting these combatants under terrorist organizations are effective? Is it that?
In
Is
some
it your
sense,
position?
yes, but we have to give the same
Your
award
Next
to
question.
others. Yes, of
Okay.
course.
Question. Do you recognize the incidence of suicide bombings around our globe right now?
Suicide bombings can be of different manners, maybe
you-
conducted by groups
My
or
question,
individuals.
my question, Your Honor, is that do you believe or do you agree that this exists right now? Does this
Of
things
course,
happen?
in many parts of the world, it does.
Are you aware of what happened 3 weeks ago in Afghanistan?
Yes.
Yes, there was a suicide bombing who killed 183 casualties and 200 injured civilians. In principle, if that suicide bomber was caught right now, do you think he is capable of reformation?
Madam Speaker, we are not talking about one single terrorist. We
No,
are talking about thousands
Your
of
Honor.
hundreds of
It's a
terrorists.
hypothetical question. Do you think that suicide bomber is capable of reformation?
Yes.
No, not necessarily, because according to the study of Nova Southern University, the pathological mindset of a suicide or a terrorist at that are pragmatic solutions to initiate terror.
Question, please.
I think she ran out of time, Dean.
So it's already time? Okay.
Yes.
So that caps the championship round of Dean's Cup 2021. Again, congratulations to all the debaters for a good round, and just do a virtual traditional handshake and crossing of the house. So we will now proceed to the breakout room to deliberate on the verdict that we will pronounce later on. All right, so this championship round is just getting intense, and I beg the indulgence of the debaters. All right, so anyway, we will have a super final capping of the championship round by the we will have the rebuttals of both sides. So can we pin already the debater? So let us now proceed to, okay, so let us now proceed to our rebuttal round for 3 minutes.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is unfortunate that at this point in time, the purpose of international humanitarian laws, which is to lessen the consequences of wars and conflicts, has remained an illusion for people who has been labeled as collateral damage in civil wars. It's difficult to defend a side that wants to challenge existing norms and structures because we have the burden to prove that what we are proposing is not in contrast with human rights. But if we look at it in contrast, under the negative side, human rights are also being violated, except that the rights that the receiving end of this culture of violence under their model are lives of civilians who also did not choose to be born in countries that they live in and did not choose their circumstances. We reject the accusation that our policy is lowering the moral threshold of humanitarian laws, when for years and decades, the fact that the international community is acting as a bystander to these deaths is already morally questionable. The only difference in their side is that they are used to the deaths of civilians. That's why they are not triggered to take the measure that we are willing to take. Just to give us a vivid picture of what's at stake, if a terrorist is captured by state combatants and they decided that they need to torture a crucial information out of that terrorist, that is acceptable under the new convention, because we'd rather do that than release him and subject hundreds of innocent lives to the same threats that has perpetuated for years. Furthermore, aside from the argument of unalienable rights coming from negative, they never really engage why IHLs, which is actually who declared the rights, that these rights are unalienable, cannot change their stance on this matter, especially that we have acquired no benefit from existing policies that has tolerated this culture of violence. So there really is no teeth in their argument, both legally and morally, because they just said that what we want is to remain what we have right now, which is nothing. So, but if choosing to be a bystander and choosing to tolerate this kind of action is something that they want to do, we think it's not in line with the core principle of international humanitarian laws. We think that an injustice in one state is an injustice for the rest of humanity, and something has to be done. I would like to manifest that all speakers from Marawi and Iligan had the privilege of being coached by the late Sohaini Nasher Pagadilan, and we would like to dedicate this round for him. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, finally, it has been like a third already. To finally close the championship round, may we call the rebuttal speaker of the other side.
Your Honors, in a world where anyone can be a terrorist, especially in the absence of the international determination of who terrorists are, and especially when the person causes or ideology do not align with the states, or because when a person is actually a Muslim, the negative side believes that terrorists should still be accorded the protection provided by the international law conventions and treaties. Ladies and gentlemen, there are two overarching issues that transpired in this evening's debate. First, on which side is more consistent in protecting human beings? And second, on which side do we best protect inalienable rights? On the first level of overarching issue, Your Honors, on their side, they want to protect their people, but they want to take away the very protection accorded to these terrorists, Your Honors. They are going against the very principle that they are trying to protect. Remember, you cannot have your cake and eat it too. On our side, Your Honors, we are consistent in protecting human rights. We already told you that we are not willing to stoop down to the level of these terrorists just to bring justice that they are talking about. They forgot that these terrorist groups are also dynamic, Your Honors. We argued on how Hamas was actually labeled as a terrorist organization earlier, but now it has attained a legal, a political, as a legal political organization, ladies and gentlemen. And ultimately, we came in this debate arguing that humans are not objects of terrorism and that they are humans as well. On the second level of issue, ladies and gentlemen, on which side do we best protect inalienable rights? The affirmative side did not engage our arguments. On their side, what they told us, Your Honors, that when you commit acts of terrorism, regardless of the reason, you are divested of even the basic human right and even the inalienable rights, Your Honors. The problem with that is that they discredit the political tensions that are existing behind these terrorist organizations, ladies and gentlemen. And with all these reasons, we are very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you. And that finally wraps up. That's really super final wrapping up of the championship round of Dean's Cup 2021. So may I invite once again, just a few minutes and you will be hearing the verdict already coming from the panel of adjudicators. So may I invite once again the adjudicators to proceed to the breakout room, please. All right. We now have come to the difficult part of this championship round. If you gave us a hard time, that is in a way a compliment to the debaters, because you gave us a hard time to decide and to determine who the winner really is. So congratulations. This is indeed a good round and a good job. Congratulations once again to the debaters and for having reached the championship round. May I ask for the debaters to be pinned or spotlighted? Okay, before that pala, I will now proceed to Attorney Nash Marhom Salik to give her overview of the performance of the affirmative side. So we'll have the affirmative and then Attorney Nash, please.
All right. Congratulations, everyone. We commend your effort. And again, I think I have discussed this during the round 2. All right, that debate is a display. It's not just a display of your intelligence and your skills, but it is also a display of your character. And we must also do not forget to respect each other, even if the other party is already pushing us to the corner. We have to respect the opposing speakers and keep your composure and never let your emotions cloud your better judgment, because it will take away your integrity. So no one really wins when someone shouts and interrupts an opponent. Remember that. And we must always be humble. We keep always our heads low and let us not equate confidence with arrogance. Okay, for the affirmative side, your stand is the more difficult stand. So because you will go against the grain of treaties and conventions, but especially you cited the UN conventions, Article 25 and the Vienna Treaty, Article 40, and you know your basis, you know your law. And you cited arguments, and not only that, you cited current events. You were close to home. You know what the current events are, you know what is happening in the international arena. But I think this was Ms. Guro, no? The definition, you provided for the definition as provided in the GA Resolution 1566. But but I think, although this wasn't cited by the negative side, that although terrorism is use cogens, it is only customary international law. So in that case, the GA Resolution 4960 was arrived at with no vote. It was yes. So I was waiting for the negative side to discuss that, but they didn't. Well, they dwell on something else. So at the outset, you established, I think this was the first or second speaker, that you do not support torture. Is that correct? So my understanding is correct, right? Okay. So that was good, because you laid down you laid down your basis, you fortified your fortress, and by stating that you do not support torture, you are already avoiding what could have been a possible downfall for your stand. So thank you and congratulations, the affirmative, you did a good job.
Thank you, Attorney Nash, and thank you to the debaters of the affirmative side. Let us now proceed to the negative side. May I ask the tech team, please? We will have Attorney Alexine Bangcola to give an overview of the performance of the negative side.
Are all of the debaters of the negative side here? Regardless, should I proceed?
We have Mr. Where's Hata? Okay, so yes, you may proceed, Attorney Alex.
Okay, Dean. So, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. On the onset, I would like to extend my congratulations to everybody. This was a difficult motion, and it could be clearly seen on both sides the thorough research that each one of you did. Public international law, much more international humanitarian law, is a very difficult and complex subject, not just on the theoretical difficulties, but as well as the moral difficulties that you would have to handle. On the opposition side, generally as the opposition side, you have two actions which you can take in how you respond to the government side. It's either you respond by defending status quo, or you respond by coming up with a counter policy. So in every debate, you have to know which is the wisest action to take. You have to know whether or not you have to respond to the hardline stance of the government side so as to make yourself as distinct from them as possible, because it could be that when you take a soft line stance, there's no longer any distinction between you and the government. But at the same time, you have to be cautious not to overextend yourself, wherein it's not necessarily your burden to come up with a whole new regime, but you still push yourself to do that anyway. What happens is that you do not maximize the analysis that you could have done because you are putting it, or you are exercising it to defend a completely new status quo. So I would like you to keep that in mind for future debates. I would also like you to remember that you have to know what kind of debate what kind of debate format you are engaging in, whether it's Asian Parliamentary, Britpar, or even in this case, Oregon Oxford, because it really depends on that kind of format, how you are supposed to effectively exercise your speaker roles. Remember that you are supposed to be defending or arguing on the perspective of necessity, beneficiality, and practicality within the context of this debate. What I appreciated from the opposition side is, again, I appreciated the research, the citations that you were able to present, as well as that hint of what you call this ethos and pathos, that emotional vulnerability, or that emotional angle to your argumentation. You could say that it was a humane argumentation. I also appreciated how there was a discussion on the terrorist, quote unquote, giving a human side or human aspect to the individual as well as the organization. Perhaps it was a unique take, to be sure, and then later on defending the importance of human rights. Why, even if, let's say, these individuals committed such atrocities, it is still not enough to actually sacrifice or to actually taint the human rights regime, what we consider to be fundamental or an integral part of our our international law, to the extent that they became jus cogens. As we know, the right against torture, regardless of what kind of individual you are, there is a reason that the international community agreed upon that stance. However, I would have appreciated a deeper analysis on that. Why exactly? I would have appreciated engagement, in the sense that you would engage, if you had engaged with the affirmative side, in the sense that you would acknowledge or concede that there are indeed some individuals, some terrorists who may be irredeemable, who really commit such atrocities not because they're bound or forced to, but because they do so out of a sense of violence. Or even if they feel that their cause is justified, it is not necessarily a good thing. So I would have appreciated more even if arguments, that even if you're conceding that there are those individuals, regardless, your stand should still stand, whether it's for the greater good or whether it's because you're defending something stronger or greater than just individual or state security. Those are some angles that you could have taken in this debate. More or less, those are just really points for improvement that use in future debates. Be careful. I actually said this in the first round, ironically, with the affirmative side. I said this to the affirmative side, that be careful of taking an absolute stance, because there's no such thing as absolutes, whether in debate or in real life. You have to know when to concede. You have to know how to employ even if arguments, because that makes your argument stronger. It's as if you're saying to the other side, yes, we concede that that is a reality, but even so, our argument will still stand. So I assume you know how to employ those. I guess my recommendation is you would employ them more in the future. Overall, and with all of the debaters, really, you guys did a good job. I appreciate the research. There is still room for improvement, but as we know, the study of law and even debate, it is a continuous process. So with that said, I would like to congratulate everyone once again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Attorney Alex, and thank you, debaters of the negative side. So I am tasked to do the most difficult job here, that is to drop the axe. I will begin by pronouncing the best speaker for the championship round. And by the way, it is a split decision. And the best speaker for this round, again, congratulations to all the debaters. But the best speaker goes to the second speaker of the affirmative side, Ms. Rohanima Guro. And for the winner of the championship round of Dean's Cup 2021, Madam President of the Debate and Moot Society, are you to flash the tabulation as you did maybe in the elimination rounds? Or should I proceed to declare the winner already?
I'll flash back so you declare the winner.
You did flash it, or you did flash it in the earlier rounds?
Yes,
okay. So, okay, I will just announce the winner. It is via a very, very slim margin. So in a way that tells you that we did have a hard time deciding on who the winner should be. And second, that you both really did a good job, because that is how close the margin is. So we give the championship round to the affirmative side, which is from the Iligan campus. Congratulations. So the Iligan team, the margin is only at 2.2. Congratulations, Iligan. And congratulations as well, Marawi, for also putting a good fight in this final round of Battle of Words and Wit. So thank you so much. May we request, because we are allowed for 9, may we request the affirmative to be spotlighted. Congratulations, okay? The affirmative to be spotlighted also, okay? And yes, all of the members of the affirmative side, together with the adjudicators, I think we will fit, because 9 is allowed, at least 5. Okay. Kulang pa. Tech team, please. The other adjudicators, yes.
Potato.
Okay. So we are now potato daw. All right. So we are complete, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So ready for your smile and for a while. Okay. For a while. Okay. So ready. Tanggalin ko muna. And smile. Your championship smile. Okay, so we congratulate once again affirmative for doing a really good job and for winning the championship round. We now proceed to the negative side. Yes, congratulations. Ayun pala si Fiscal, meron pala siyang amicus curiae dyan. May I invite
Nakamute ka din.
let us invite, tech team, please also spotlight the debaters coming from the negative side. Okay. The other 2 debaters, all right, and Ayman. Okay. So smile, you are all winners. Remember that. Okay, this should just motivate you to do better. Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3, and smile. Another one. Baka maubos ang film, 2 lang. Smile. Okay, let us have, thank you, dear adjudicators. Can we have the adjudicators muna na lang and then finally debaters? Shall I stop the streaming already or, yeah.
Yes, Dean. Yes.
Okay, so I will stop the
Kita sa
streaming.
Facebook ang picture ang selfie session eh.
Oo nga. Okay, so anyway, so I think that's already enough. So thank you so much, dear adjudicators, for, it's been a long day. I know that if not for the love of debate, you will not be here. Diba? Webinar, half day lang, no, but you are here and I really, really thank you for enriching the culture of debate in our campuses. And for that, let us all smile. And we are extending our greetings to all of those who are still watching us live via Facebook. So these are our commendable and distinguished panel of adjudicators. All right, so thank you so much. I will now turn over the virtual stage to the MC and or the president of the Debate and Moot Society. Before I will turn over, Cha, I'd like to thank the members, the hardworking members of the Debate and Moot Society of Iligan for hosting excellently, despite the challenges, despite the short time, Dean's Cup 2021. And for our next Dean's Cup, it will be hosted by the General Santos campus. So I hope Sir Man will be the host. If it can be physically done, we will be ushered.
Sure did.
To
basta ikaw, nanginginig pa.
Okay, so thank you. And the technical team, SLSC, thank you. Supreme Law Student Council, led by the president, Mr. Fritz Amparado, the Nexus, who also groundwork, and of course to the campus head, the assistant dean of Iligan campus, AD Joanna Alino Bisocor. AD Joey, thank you for the support. And of course, the other extension campuses. Allow me to take this opportunity not only to thank the supportive campuses, not only for the debate, but in all the activities of our celebration of Law Week and MSU Diamond Anniversary. To the campus head of General Santos Campus, Assistant Dean Habaribal, thank you so much. So, did I miss anyone, Cha? No? Baka may nakalimutan akong pasalamatan because I'll be fully turning it over to the tech team. All right. So, yes. Take it away, Madam President, and congratulations before you will turn over your crown. You have sponsored and conducted this remarkable event.
Thank you so much, Dean. Thank you also to our dear panel of adjudicators. Allow me this time to give symbolically this token and certificate of appreciation to our panel of adjudicators. May I call in the MC, please?
Once again, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Allow me to present to you the certificates of appreciation. Mindanao State University, College of Law, Iligan Extension Campus. Certificate of appreciation is given to Attorney Annabel Cañazares Mindalano for her valuable time as adjudicator in the 2021 Dean's Cup Inter-Campus Debate Tournament held virtually on 26 September 2021. Signed by Attorney Michael Cesar A. Advincola, Advisor of Debate and Moot Society, and Attorney Annabel Cañazares Mindalano, RCHE, the Dean of MSU College of Law herself. Thank you so much, Attorney. Next, we would also like to give the certificate of appreciation to Attorney Nash Mylene A. Maruhum Salik for her valuable time as adjudicator in the 2021 Dean's Cup Inter-Campus Debate Tournament held virtually on 26 September 2021. Signed by Attorney Michael Cesar Advincola, the advisor of Debate and Moot Society, and Attorney Annabel Cañazares Mindalano, RCHE, the Dean of MSU College of Law. Thank you, Attorney. And we would also like to give the certificate of appreciation to Prosecutor Lauren Halila Lau for her valuable time as adjudicator in the 2021 Dean's Cup Inter-Campus Debate Tournament held virtually on 26 September 2021, signed by Attorney Michael Cesar Advincula, the advisor and Debate and Moot Society, and Attorney Annabel Cañazares Mindalano, RCHE, the Dean of MSU College of Law. And lastly, we would like to give the certificate of appreciation by Attorney Ashiana Alexine Adia Amira Labi Bangkola for her valuable time as adjudicator in the 2021 Dean's Cup Inter-Campus Debate Tournament held virtually on 26 September 2021, signed by Attorney Michael Cesar Advincula, the advisor of DMS, and Attorney Annabel B. Cañazares Mindalano, RCHE, the Dean of MSU College of Law. Thank you so much, adjudicators. Oh, apologies for that. We would like to give this certificate of appreciation to Attorney Leonard Bentipo Man for his valuable time as adjudicator in the 2021 Dean's Cup Intercampus Debate Tournament held virtually on 26 September 2021, assigned by Attorney Michael Advincula, the advisor of DMS, and Attorney Annabel Cañazares Mindalano, RCHE, the Dean of MSU College of Law. Congratulations, winners. And with that, our program has officially concluded. That means it's time to relax and enjoy the rest of the day. But first, we would like to thank everyone who has made this momentous event a great success. We extend our gratitude to our Dean, Attorney Annabel Cañazares Mindalano, to our honorable adjudicators. Thank you so much. To the debaters, you all did great. The Debate and Moot Society volunteers, our live FB viewers, the students of MSU College of Law. Thank you everyone who has made this 2021 Dean's Cup a great success. For those who want to finally enjoy their rest day, rest if you must, sleep well. But for those who are still planning to study, the night is young and our law books are waving. We still have our closing program later, so please stay tuned. For those with us in Zoom, please stay for the photo ops. This is again your host, Rowie. Thank you and good evening.
I will now end this. Congratulations, everyone.
We'll have the tokens then po sent to each of the respective adjudicators.
Yoxin.